Hey, what's going on everyone? Hawks21 here, back with another Splinterlands video. So as I said in my reward video that was out yesterday, I was going to make a video talking about the new bot proposal and all of the drama that's come with it. Now, previously I've gotten some comments that I tend to stay away from some of the more controversial issues, or I stay relatively neutral when I discuss them. And that's kind of just my personality. But this one's not going to be like that. I don't like to play in the mud generally, but in this one we're going to get in the mud a little bit. It's something I feel a bit more strongly about than some of the other issues that have popped up. And we're going to get into the whole thing. So I've outlined this video a bit. We're going to start sort of talking about the history of the bot debate. For anyone who hasn't been here for as long as I have, this has been a conversation that's gone on for a really long time. So we're going to talk about that real quick. Then we're going to get into the actual proposal. Followed, we're going to read some of Matt's recent comments that help provide some light on what he thinks should happen. Then we're going to get into my opinion. And then we're going to talk about the most controversial issue of all, an issue involving vote shaming, and one particular person in general whose vote is causing a bit of a stir. So there's a lot to cover. We're going to get into all of it. But before I do, just a reminder, I am Hawks21 and I cover Splinterlands here on the channel. If you are into this type of content, if you love Splinterlands, if you are looking for a play-to-earn game, you have come to the right place. Although this might not be the right first video for you to watch, I'm going to be honest. But if you are new here, it would be awesome if you could take a second to subscribe to the channel. We are moving closer and closer to the 2,000 goal. Our next stop is 1,700, so I hope to get there shortly. All right, let's get into it. So the bot debate has been one that's been happening for a really long time. If you scroll through my videos, you'll probably see a couple different videos of me talking about bots at, different parts of the game when the debate would pick up. And there are two basically different classifications of bots. There are the bots that a lot of people use, give it Xbot or Splinter Mates or whatever other one, Archmage, whichever other ones exist. And then there are bot farms. Generally speaking, a lot of people are against bot farms, and there are definitely some people against using bots at all. But generally speaking, one person using a bot to play their account with their one account is less frowned upon, just in general. There are some people who would probably disagree with me there. But for me, my kind of point of view is bot farms are really bad for the ecosystem. If every one person had one account and some people used a bot, when they were on vacation or whatever, that I have far less of a problem with. But anyways, so whenever the bot debate comes up, it was basically this circular argument of hypotheticals that would go absolutely nowhere. And for the most part, that was because the team had just said, we are not going to ban bots, right? So what were some of those arguments? Well, the people who wanted them banned would say things like, bots are stealing from the earnings pool, right? Which is true. If you're running a bot farm and you're running a ton of accounts, you are going to take up more than your sort of expected proportion of earnings, right? Because you're going to be playing so many accounts. Boom. The other thing, harder for new players coming into the game, specifically at bronze and silver, where a lot of these bot farm accounts were playing. The game is less the game's more mathematical at the lower levels. There's less RNG because there's less abilities, there's less chance, there's less sort of crazy strategies you can run just because the cards aren't as developed as they are at the higher levels. So a lot of it comes out to a math problem, right? Which, if it's a math problem, in general, bots are really good at that. So bots can be really difficult to beat at lower levels, specifically bronze and silver. In diamond and champion, it's a lot harder. First, let's be clear, bots are above average players, even at champion and diamond. But they're a lot easier to beat because there's so many different types of strategies you can run match to match, right? The quote unquote optimal strategy for a battle in diamond, champion, or even gold at times really depends on what your opponent plays, right? So there's just way more complication at the higher levels, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So the new player experience is a big argument for people who want to ban bots, right? If you're trying to figure out the game and you're coming up through bronze and silver and you hit bot after bot after bot who are playing these really, really, really perfect lineups every single time, you're not going to enjoy the game, right? It's going to be difficult. It works best if you're playing against people who are at the same stage as you, right? Who are going to make mistakes, who are testing things out, who are trying to figure out how the game works. If that group of people is playing together, they're going to learn, they're going to be successful, they're going to enjoy it more. If that group of people is playing against bots who are going to play, a top tier lineup for whatever that rule set is, as people are still figuring out the game, understandable that's not that enjoyable of experience. So there are others, but that's sort of the two things I would say have been the main arguments. It worsens the new player experience, and it steals huge parts of the earnings pool. And for a while with the rewards cards, it was dumping reward cards on the market, right? Bot farms would farm their rewards, immediately sell them, and it kept card prices really, really low because they're not in the business of playing Splinterlands for a long period of time. They're in the business of extracting as much value as the game as possible and then leaving when there's a new opportunity that arises. If Splinterlands stops, providing the return they want, they're not going to be here. So they have no interest in watching a Pelacor Bandit or Pelacor Conjurer go from half a penny to 5 cents. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just as an example. They don't care about that. They care about getting 1,000 Pelacor Conjurers in a day and selling them all for half of a penny. Okay, so there were some counter arguments, obviously. The two main ones were, if you take away all the bots, there aren't going to be a lot of matches. So if you want to come in here and play a bunch of matches, I got 14 energy right now. If I wanted to play these and there were no bots, then it would take me a long time to get a match, right? No one wants to wait 5 minutes to get a match. Again, hypothetical. A lot of these things are hypothetical. Maybe that's true. We don't really know. The other argument was kind of just like, how would it even work? This game is supposed to be decentralized. The whole point is you don't want a central body to determining which account is botting, which account isn't botting, because then that leads to mistakes. That was kind of the team's take the whole entire time, right? So sort of the fallback option for people who didn't want to ban bots was, well, how could we even do that? We're supposed to be decentralized. We can't have someone who's making those decisions. So that was kind of where we were at for a long time. And the team made a lot of changes around this, right? So reward structures and sort of the energy system, the previous ECR system, was constantly being adjusted. Remember the old 50% ECR thing where you'd start to go down more? That was because of bots. The rating point system, where they penalize underleveled cards and stuff like that, that was because of bot farms. The reward structure in general has changed numerous times, mainly because of bots. The introduction of soulbound reward cards. A lot of that was because of bots. Again, some of these things have other reasons, but part of it was bot farms were just dumping reward cards on the market, and the team wanted to disincentivize that, right? So now we got soulbound reward cards. And there are other things too, like more minor changes, quality of life stuff, that we've had to change because of bots. One of them is, and this is like one of my least favorite things, if you notice, it's a subtle thing that if you haven't been here for a while, you wouldn't really pick up on. When you're battling someone, you can't see their name until you both enter 18. right? Previously, that wasn't the case. I would hit battle, a similar screen to the current one would pop up, but I would see their name. Specifically when you're playing at the highest levels with some well-known people, it's really cool to know who you're playing as you're submitting your team. So I'll give a good example, right? I've played Bulldog countless times, right? Maybe I've played him 30 times. His record against me is probably like 25-5. He has beat me a ton of times. But early on, there was a couple times I got him because I watched his streams a ton and I knew the types of lineups he would like to play, right? I watched Bulldog play the game. He was part of the reason why I got into the game. So I knew his strategies. I knew the type of stuff he liked to do. I knew his play style. So I could see that, ooh, I'm going to play Bulldog. I bet he's going to try to go this route. And I could try to counter it. And that made the game really, really fun. Right? If I was sitting here trying to play the game, if I was streaming, or if I was recording a video where I was playing ranked battles live, it's cool to sit there and be like, oh, I'm playing one of the top players right now. You know, I'm playing one of my friends. I'm playing one of my community members. It's way more fun when you know that before you're picking your team. You can try to do something stupid, right? If I was going to play one of my, really close community members, I would try to play a ridiculous lineup, right? It'd be fun. I'd want to play, a quadruple martyr, bunch of resurrects, just something silly and fun. And if it worked, I'd be able to post it in my Discord, have a little fun with them. It's just a small quality of life thing that went away because bots were able to wait to see what you were going to submit as a team, or be able to look at your deck quickly and see a bunch of different stuff about how you played, and they would be able to sort of deduce what you're going to try to play. So to counter that, the team took away a bunch of stuff that you see pre-match. Now, I don't know if this proposal would allow that kind of stuff to come back. I'm more so just saying, we've lost some things. We've had to change a ton of things because of bots. So a little like prequel, before I sort of get fully into my opinion, I'm already getting a little worked up. One of the concerns about this is, what does it look like for the dev team? Now, Matt has said that it's going to be basically a zero lift for the dev team. It's going to be a third party, which we'll get into in a second. And people are skeptical about how much time and energy it's going to take from the dev team to do something like this. Do you know how much time and energy the dev team and the management team has already spent trying to change the game, fix the economy, make tweaks because of bots? It's not just what is the work that's going to go into potentially banning bots or limiting bots or whatever you want to call it. You also have to factor in the amount of work and time that would be saved in the future trying to avoid bot exploits. They have spent so much time designing this new system, setting up things to make the game more player friendly. Think about all the time that they would save if they no longer had to do that. Okay, before I get too deep into it, let's stay on track here. Let's talk about the actual proposal. So the proposal got edited. So while Splinterlands is aiming to become a game in which humans and bots compete on equal footing, it currently is not. By testing anti-bot measures in modern format, players can begin to enjoy competition against each other. So a little bit of proposal history. Originally, this person proposed that they created a temporary ranked mode with anti-bot measures. Basically set up a different league where they would test out anti-bot measures. Pretty good idea. I kind of like that idea. But to Yabomat's point, for those worried about lift, instead of creating an entirely new play mode, which would be a pretty big project, what if we just instead tried implementing anti-bot measures in modern format only? This would be much, much easier to actually implement and try out, and bots would still have a format with 50% of the rewards that they can participate in wild. So that was Yavamat's sort of counter proposal, and that became the proposal. So he added some extra thing here. I wanted to add some more information to this that might be helpful. There are third-party services that can be used to prevent bots from being able to use APIs, and they are supposedly pretty good from what I understand. So if this proposal passes, the plan would be to use one of those services in front of the battle API for modern format battles, and the Splinterlands team would not be spending any resources policing the system or trying to identify bots and things like that. If this initial trial is successful and we continue this on an ongoing basis, I would probably make a proposal to ask the DAO to help cover the cost of that service, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, so a couple big things here. It is going to be a third-party service. This is not something the team is going to be doing. It is something that the team is going to pay for, right? And eventually, we are going to put it to a DAO vote if this works to see if we can continue funding it. So that's an important distinction, right? The team is willing up front to say, hey, we'll bite the bullet for this first part. Let's see if this works. If it works, we can have another vote to see if the DAO is willing to cover the cost for that service. So the important thing in here is there is a clear off-ramp, all right? We try this, it doesn't work, let's say. Let's say some of the doubters are right and there are not enough matches. Let's say that ends up happening and we're like, oh boy, I gotta wait 15 minutes for a match. Bring back the bots, please. If that happens, we vote no on continuing to fund it, right? We put up another proposal to stop it. The team says, hey, this isn't going well. Let's cut it. Boom, easy, done. Before I get fully into it, this was another thing Matt said in the Discord. My position is that we should try it. I don't know if bots will be able to circumvent it, or if people will like it, if it will make the game better or worse, if people will be able to find matches, etc. But I know that the only way to answer these questions for sure is to just try it. And I would rather do that than continue to endlessly debate it. It's like he was in my brain. I couldn't agree more. I don't have a strong opinion. I use Xbot from time to time. I would say it plays probably like 60% of my matches for me. But this proposal is a no-brainer. It allows us to test a third-party service that could potentially help solve some of these problems we've been talking about for weeks and weeks and months and months. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then we know that and we move on. That's the whole thing. I don't plan for it to be resource intensive at all. We're already planning to do this option for tournaments. So they're already kind of thinking about this. They want to do it for tournaments and they probably want to do it for brawls too. So applying it to modern battles won't be any extra work. This is coming for tournaments. It has to come for tournaments. We already kind of knew that. So we'll implement a service like Cloudflare. I think that's the name of the third-party service. If people are caught circumventing them, then we'll figure out how to handle that on a case-by-case basis. I look at this whole thing as an experiment. If it turns out to be unreasonable, then we will end the experiment. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. Do this for 2 seasons. Give us the data on how it goes for 2 seasons. Put it up for another vote. Do we continue with DAO funding covering it? If yes, we continue. If no, the experiment ends. It's that simple. But if you're someone who's been in the community for this long, and you have the community's sort of best interest in mind, you should want this experiment. Even if you lean to the side of this isn't gonna work, you should want this experiment. Because the upsides, if it does work, are clear. More rewards for human players. More rewards for human players means more enticing investment opportunity for human players. Which means, which means more human players potentially coming into the game. I don't have that strong of opinion on bots, but I have a very strong opinion on this. Because if it works, it's going to be a huge boost for the game. And if it doesn't work, it's not going to matter. There is almost endless potential upside to this proposal and very, 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 very little downside. So that's kind of my opinion. Let's quickly check out the proposal because the voting itself has been a little rocky, and then we'll talk about the last drama-filled part of this whole debacle. So if we come here to proposals, it is currently barely passing. So you need 66% of the vote to pass. Now, who would vote against this? Well, there's some clear people who would vote against this, right? Anyone who's running a bot farm. And you might think, oh, all of these accounts have, very little SPS on them. How much power are they going to have? Well, in reality, the people who are running bot farms have a ton of SPS. So there's going to be a huge portion of the community, or sorry, I shouldn't say the community because it's a very small portion of the actual community. There's going to be people who run bot farms or benefit from bot farms who are going to want this proposal to fail for obvious reasons, right? One thing I brought to touch on is why is it in modern and not wild? So for me, that kind of makes sense, right? I don't think there's a perfect answer, but modern is where most of the new players should start, right? If you're starting the game, you should start in modern. And the reason for that is there's less cards that you need to learn and figure out, right? If you want to go in wild, then all of a sudden all of these other cards come into play. It's a much more manageable experience for you to start playing in modern. And then Splinterlands could kind of create a pipeline where it's building towards you being able to eventually play in wild if you wanted to, right? But you learn the game in modern. So I just want to touch on that quickly. I think it makes sense for it to be modern and not in wild. Okay, back to this portion. So there's going to be big people who are going to vote against this because it's not in their interests, right? It's not in the bot farm's interests. And this brings to the drama part. Now, if you look, a lot of the high rollers here are voting for it. My good friend who I built this website with, Brave Tofu, voting for it. Azircon, probably pronounced that wrong, sorry, voting for it. Cryptomancer, voting for it. SPS Dolphin, voting for it. A lot of the names that you know are voting for it. So we look up here and we see Blockchain FF. 6 million SPS voting no. Now, Blockchain FF. Does that name sound familiar? Well, if you remember a couple proposals ago, this is the person who is now responsible for 30 million SPS to find us more exchanges to get SPS on. So remember that controversial vote? 30 million SPS is being set aside for this person to find us in exchange. Now, how is this sold to us, right? Because we originally voted no, if I remember correctly. But how was this sold to us? It was sold to us as Blockchain FF is someone who's been around the game a long time, which is true, has the community's best interest in mind, and is super well connected and blah, 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 and we should trust him with 30 million SPS. I made a video basically saying that people I trusted said we should trust Blockchain FF. And so I was going to vote for it, even though I was concerned. You can go back and find that video. This For someone who is supposed to have the game's best interest in mind, this is a weird vote. And it's not just the 6 million SPS, right? Look at this count right here. You say, well, why isn't this person catching any slack? 4 million SPS. It's the same person who has both of these accounts. 10 million SPS right here. The kicker, none of these accounts play the game. Neither of them play the game. If you go look at their battle history, none of them actually play. They're not involved day to day. The person has not talked in Discord for the longest time. We actually had Dave McCoy, one of the people on the SPS council, come out and basically say to this person, I don't trust you anymore. He talked about how he pushed the community to trust him on the 30 million SPS, that he vouched for him. And then this vote, which clearly isn't in the best interest of the community, the best interest of the community is to try this. That is objectively true. That's why you see people up and down the ownership spectrum voting for this, right? Basically, the main people who aren't voting for this are bot farm owners who do have a lot of SPS, so it's a meaningful voice. The other interesting part is this guy's a board member. And Matt and Aggie, despite Matt clearly supporting the proposal, have said they're not going to vote on this because it's too contentious of an issue, and they're going to let the community decide. Well, how come then this person can vote on it? It seems like if the whole team isn't going to vote on it, then the whole team shouldn't vote on it. Where do we draw the line on that? Doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So this was what was sort of debated the whole entire time. And now this person who, for the 30 million SPS that they're now responsible with, was coming on town halls and talking about it and sort of saying what they can do, at least for now, has been nowhere to be found. And I think this should be noted, right? There were then calls for vote shaming, right? Should we be vote shaming? To me, this isn't vote shaming. This is the whole point of decentralized voting, right? That, no longer, sorry, I need some water. I've been ranting for too long. This is why I don't make these rant videos. 1 second. Ooh, I don't know how people talk for this long. Okay. So, to me, it's the whole point of the open voting system, right? Transparency. There's no votes or outcomes that are decided behind closed doors. Or there's too many systems where it works like that, right? A bunch of powerful people go behind a closed door, make the decision, and then tell everybody their decision. No. These votes are out in the public, right? And for me, it's not even about the amount of SPS this person has, because that was part of the conversation too. If this person had 20 SPS, would they be catching slack? To me, that doesn't matter. It's the influence the person has and the trust that this community has already placed in this person for 30 million SPS. 30 million SPS. I'll tell you for sure, if this had happened before the 30 million SPS, I would have been making a video telling people to stay away from that previous proposal. No. This person clearly doesn't have the community's best interest in mind, like we were told. Okay, so this is a material change in this person's reputation that I think needs to and should be addressed. And it does not matter how much SPS they have, right? If I made a video saying I was buying a card, right, and that card spiked in price, and then that card spikes in price, so I start to sell it, right? Does that matter how much I made from doing that? Or would it be bad regardless, right? So if I did that and I made 10 bucks, would anyone notice? Would anyone care? Probably not, right? But if I made $10,000, people would care a lot and people would notice. Regardless, it's wrong and it should be called out. If people want to call him out for doing something that goes against what they've been told, it doesn't matter how much SPS he has, right? If he had 20 SPS and he was responsible for our 30 million, he should be called out. And to be clear, he has no obligation to change his vote. People want an explanation from him, right? He has no obligation to give that information, to give that explanation. He can vote however he wants. He can say, people are being mean to me, so I want to vote this way. Okay. But not being able to talk about it, that should affect how we deal with this person moving forward. I think that stuff is very, very important to remember. 6 months from now, if there's another proposal that comes up that blockchain FF is going to do XYZ for us, I want to remember this. I want people to know how this all went down. So yeah, what can we do, right? I think we can continue preaching the merits of this proposal, why it's a great thing to test, why there's very little downside. Matt said it himself. It's an experiment. Let's do it. He wants to do it. I want to do it. Most of the community wants to do it. So what can we do in the meantime? The first is we can start talking to some people who currently have no votes. See why. Maybe try to address their concerns. I know Monster Veritas was in the MAV chat earlier having some conversations. Maybe that's someone you can talk to. Be respectful, obviously. If we get stuff from here, be respectful at all times. Always be respectful. Have a conversation. That's all you can do. See if you know any of these people. Try to have a conversation. The other thing is, do what I'm about to do right now. We'll do a little claim. Here we go. We got our loot goblin. Do a little claim. I like to keep a bunch of liquid SPS for any variety of reasons, but this is pretty important. So I'm going to come in here and let's stake an additional 600. So I got all my SPS staked. Come back here to proposals and hit power up all. So if you hit power up all, that'll basically increase your vote by how much you've increased your staked SPS since the last time you hit powered up. So now my new number is represented in here. So this is going to be close. So make sure you're coming in here, staking your SPS, and voting yes. So yeah, that's where it is. You know, and the never-ending bot discussion has sort of hit a proposal now, which I never thought we would honestly get here. But I think it's important to vote yes for this. I think it's important for the Splinterlands community to give this a shot, to see how it goes, and then we can collectively move on to the next thing. But if we don't, we will never end this cycle of bot discussion. So I think this is the perfect time to give it a go. You know, is it going to work? I have no idea. It could fail miserably. And if it does, then we stop doing it. It's as simple as that. So I hope you vote yes. I feel strongly about this. For anyone who likes my normal calm videos where I'm not talking like this, don't worry. This isn't going to become a regular thing. I don't like doing stuff like this, but I felt like right now this was kind of necessary. So I'm going to stop it there. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. I will talk to you guys soon and see you around the game.